Hello, hello everyone. Sai here. Thank you so much for joining me. This is my submission for Craft Roulette episode 154. And I thought I would just go through my imagination and how I come up with these ideas. I thought it'd be kind of fun just to go through the steps. So this is the criteria that we had for episode 154, and it was a shaped card. The colors had to be yellow, green, blue, superheroes, and then needed to have some fancy circles. So the first thing I do in this, well, at least in this case, I was looking through my stamp sets just to see what triggered my imagination. I don't force anything, and so whatever pops up first, that's what I like to do. So this is the stamp set that I flipped through and immediately thought of an idea, and it was this dancing cat right here. Funky Fossil Designs has a lot of fun elements. I used their unicorn on one of the other ones with the disco card. I really like them. They have a little bit of fun detail, and they're just whimsical and fun. But what I saw was something a little different than a dancing cat. What I saw was this cat smiling and winging something. As we all know, cats do have a tendency to throw things off of bookshelves or whatever. We don't know why. We just assume they like to tease us for whatever reasons. But that is the initial thought that popped in my head when I saw this. So I went ahead and stamped that. We have it already here. And I'm just going to zoom in a little bit more so you can see. And because in this case, I have a choice of different mediums. I have alcohol markers, I have pencil crayons, and I have watercolors. In this case, I decided to do some watercoloring. So I needed to make sure that I have some pens that are alcohol friendly. And I've already inked it with VersaFine Clair ink, and I've let it completely dry. This is just a sample, so I'm not going to actually work with this. But what I wanted to show you is I need a superhero. And if we follow what Mary Gunn showed in her episode, all you have to do is just add a cape and a mask. So for the mask, all I did was first I just put a circle around each eye because I want to make sure that that is going to be the holes in the mask. And for the actual, because there's not much room, I'm going to make it so it's pretty skinny. And I'm going to make it skinny on around the head because I want to make it look like it's wrapping around his head. And I'm just going to kind of just follow the circles that I've already outlined. And then so on the bottom, I want to make it skinny over here and just kind of bring it up. I want to go, once again, following the eyes. I don't want to go past them because that's kind of where my rule is. But for the nose, I thought it'd be kind of cute if I just hooped around the nose and then continued up and then kind of getting a little bit narrower again. The reason I use a pencil is so that if I make a mistake, I can always fix it afterwards. Now, the other thing that Mary said to make a superhero is to add a cape. So this one took a little bit of time to kind of figure out how I wanted it. But what I usually do is I just started at the bottom, imagining the cape falling. And so, you know, kind of like that, kind of like a curtain even. And then I kind of go over, I draw right over this. Now, for me, I need to twirl things around. So I'm sorry if you have a hard time seeing this, but what I see is because of the action of him flinging, I imagine the cape is kind of going to be going like this. So there's my cape here. But that's a pretty small cape. So what I'm going to probably do is just kind of add some dimension, like if it's folded there. So now it looks like we have a fold in the cape, so it's kind of lapping over each other. And then I kind of just finesse around, just kind of make it bigger and smaller, just to imagine, just kind of making it more the shape that I want by constantly just adjusting the lines. Most of it is going to be hidden. because the cat's position, but that's okay. So I kind of just play with that and I just sharpen my edges, you know, and the coloring is what will really help. So then what I do next is I just grab a pen. These are microns. I think I'll go with the number 2. Start small first. And I just follow the lines. So in this case, I want to just follow my circles here. And you can adjust, you know, you don't have to go exactly. If your hand decides that it wants to do something a little different, that's okay. You just try your best to just move along on the lines that you already created. And I find that if you try and do it perfect, you're going to make more mistakes. You got to let your hand just freely flow. If you let your hand freely flow and you get used to that, your lines are smooth. They look really, really nice and polished, I guess you could say. Not professional. I've lost my eraser, so I guess I I thought I had it right here in front of me. But I'll just use this one. I don't use this one very often because it's my backup in case I lose my eraser. And if I use this always, then I won't have eraser, period. Now, I'm not a big fan with these ones too much when you erase, because I notice that when you erase, it gets dull. So sometimes I have to go over it again. What I do like is the Copic multi-liners. They seem to last longer, but this is just for example. I'm using a little bit bigger one. This is a 0.808 just to fill this in. The reason I'm going to fill this in, at first I thought I would use a color to match the cape. But what it is so many detail that if I used anything but black, you would see it and it would look weird that you can see the details. So it kind of needed to be black. So there you go. There's my super kitty. He looks more like a bandit at this point. Maybe he is. But that is the cat. And so I've already colored him and cut him out with watercolors. And this is him, super kitty. So I did some blue and some yellow cheeks because I can only have yellow, green, and blue. So I couldn't do red cheeks. Okay. So that is the first step. That was to get the superheroes. The next thing that I did was I have the stamp, but a lot of times I don't actually have all the stamps that I need to create a scene. So a lot of times I need to draw my own stuff. When it comes to furniture, that's actually quite easy because all you need is a ruler and a pencil. The first thing I would have done is I would have sketched this on a piece of scrap paper, and then I kind of get an idea of what I want. So what I can also do is right here is I can say, well, if I want my piece of furniture, and based off of my sketch that I did earlier, I know that I only want a corner because I don't want to take up my whole card. And so roughly I can just kind of sketch that, right? I can say, that's a little too low. But I can just draw this out. And the nice thing about furniture is a lot of the time you can get away with just straight lines. Now in this case, I don't want it to be too dimensional. I don't want it to be like this or like this where you can really see it. I want it to be almost like you're looking at it. So that's why the angle is quite different. But here's the fun part. This is where when you play with shapes, you can have a lot of fun. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create my base. This is the ledge. And you can see I'm just going to make it look the same. And you kind of just, this come with practice. So I do this a lot, especially when I was a child. I loved making things 3D. But you just start lines and then you connect them. And then if we want another one, let's say this one goes a little lower. Like that. Now don't forget, I didn't use my ruler yet, so these are all rough. And also, just so you know, I was using an image on Google as reference, just to create my own shape. I didn't create this out of my head, although if I did have a lot of time, I could have created something. So we have that. And this is all just to make it fancy, so it's not just a solid piece of furniture. Now this is going to be our leg, nice and thick. And then here's the faceplate. Usually sometimes there's a faceplate that's just decorative. You could have a drawer, but in this case it doesn't. And then now I'm going to start filling in the decal. This is what makes furniture fancy. So we got a frame coming in here. And then we'll have a bigger frame. This is going to be a really fancy piece of furniture. And then we'll just close off that frame by making it look like it's beveled. So by doing that is you just create an angle. And to make it look better is when you color it. You just need to know where to put your shading, and shading on the right angles. So that's it. What I would do then is actually I would have grabbed my ruler and then I would just fix these lines up. So that's pretty much it. You're just kind of going through, straightening your lines, and then you're going to do the exact same thing as I did with my cat, and you're going to grab your alcohol-friendly, or sorry, in my case, watercolor-friendly ink, highlighter, and you're just going to outline it all. You can see it's becoming something. Now, if you really want to get fancy, you could add, I didn't do this, but you could add like wood grains, you know. It doesn't, see, it's not anything fancy. You just kind of draw circles and lines, and then you kind of get like a wood grain, and you could play with that and have fun. And the same thing is you can go like this. You know, just having fun. So you could do that. I didn't do that. That's a little too fancy for me. So then I did this in watercolor, and this is what I've created. So you can see that I've just added shading into the right places, kind of making it look like it has a lot of depth to it, as well as different colors, so that it just looks like different pieces of wood. It looks more like a piece of art of someone creating a nice piece of furniture. Okay, so the next thing is I usually like to have a background, and the easiest way to make backgrounds is with ink. Whether you ink smush or ink blend, that's a nice way to quickly cover a piece of white paper. And I always like to have a background. Sorry, I like to have a piece of scrap paper. In this case, I like to have a shout out to Kendra Card Challenge. I print these out and I always use them as my inking because I don't want to damage my table. So because we can only have green, blue, and yellow, that's the parameters if you remember here. Green, or yellow, green, blue. First, I got to think, what is it that I want to do as a background? So I'm thinking, because I have a cat and a piece of furniture, I'm going to want it to be inside a house. So what's a fun way to make a scene is you usually have carpet on the bottom and the walls on the top. So that is where I started. So I started with some green. And this is some Catherine Pooler, and it's called Green Tea. And I'm not going to go too crazy on this. I just want to show you what I've done. And pretty much I just grab a scrap piece of paper, and I just lightly go over this whole thing. And I mean very lightly. You can tape this piece of paper down if you want so it doesn't move. But this is just a demonstration. I'm not going to do the whole thing because I don't want to take too much time. But this is all I did. So that's pretty light, but I'm just going to stay with that because I want to show you what I do next. So with this, I was just going to do a blue background, but then I kind of got inspired out of the blue. And that's just how my cards are created. I don't usually, if I think about something, I'll never create it. So I just keep moving forward, and then things happen, and if it works out, then awesome. If not, then I just start over. Or I just submit it anyways. And so what I decided was I wanted to have a pattern wall. And I'm using this Hefty Doodles blue tape. You can use any tape you want. And I have it on over here already being used. And pretty much what I did was I just blocked off the green part. That's my carpet because I don't want to go over. And then you'll see by my tape that what I've done is I made a little line here with the tape. And then I grabbed my Something Borrowed from Catherine Pooler again. And I just go over, now that everything's taped over, I can just go over this. And once again, I'm going to go very light just to kind of speed this through, but we'll just go really fast with that. So I did something like that. Now, what I wanted was a little bit of texture, and I also need to have fancy circles. My design kind of didn't have fancy circles other than the cheeks on the cats being colored yellow. So I wanted to, and when it's something lame like that, I like to try to add more circle or more to that parameter, just so that, you know, I at least put some effort into doing it and not just, there's nothing wrong with it, but I like to add a little bit more. And so I just found this stencil that had circles and stars, and I thought, how fun is that for wallpaper, especially when it's superheroes. You know, you think of the pows and the bangs and the stars flying around people's heads. So that's why I like this one. It just happened to what triggered my memory or my imagination. And so I just did it like that. And then I kind of went over it again just to make it so that it was not so much brighter than the background. So once I did that, what I wanted to do was I wanted to make sure there was stripes because I wanted it to look like panels in the wallpaper. You want to make sure you go over just a bit, however thick you want it. So I'm going to try to do a 1/4 inch, and then you just kind of go straight down. I'm rushing this, so it's not going to be perfectly straight. And if it doesn't matter if it is anyways. And then you just fill it in on this side. And this is going to be your next panel. So once again, you just grab your ink and go a little. I went a little heavy, as you can see. Made a mistake because I'm rushing. So that's what I try to avoid, but that's not a problem. And you just want to make sure you don't go over this one. If you feel uncomfortable, just grab a big piece of paper. And there we go. We got this, and then we got our panel. And so I would just do it again. I would try to do a 1/4 inch, covering it, and then there's my next panel. So that's how I was creating my background. Okay, and so how it looks is, this is the one I created off camera. You can see there's a little bit of smudging, but it kind of looks like a carpet. Now, I ended up not liking it too much. Okay, so, but I really like the blue. I love that background. I think it's a lot of fun. And so at this point, I just kind of play around. And so what I did was I found some scrap pieces of paper and I've inked them up, and I'm going to just add them as panels on the wall. Of course, this one is a little bit thicker, so I just want to make sure that I use the right ones that cover that white up. And so that's what it's going to look like. And then, of course, then I have my piece of furniture, which I'm going to put in the corner here. But before I do that, it's kind of looking plain to me. It looks too differential. And so what I usually do in that case, I catch my eyes, that I usually add a buffer. In this case, I would add this, which is just a piece of scrap piece of paper. And I'm going to treat that as trim. Okay. And so let's just do that. So there we have it. I've just glued everything down and I've trimmed it off the top. And the reason I'm not worried about here is because I'm going to cover it anyways. And I wanted to use up some scraps. So the next thing is I'm going to put my piece down. And I think I'm going to just add a little bit of foam just near the top there, because I wanted to give it, I wanted to have it secure, but I also want it to look like it's kind of lifted a bit out of, or heading towards you. And I'll just do that with some simple, really thin foam tape. And then it just gives it a little bit of lift. But the rest of it I'm going to glue down. And here we go. So there's creating the scene. Next, I have my cat, and I'm going to put him right on top of there. Once again, I am going to lift him up with some foam tape. You can see that I was accidentally I made a mistake there on my stamping. That's okay. So just make sure that I have the right amount. I'm just going to lightly put that down. There we go. That looks good. And then glue the rest down. So there we go. There's my kitty. It's supposed to be a superhero, not a bandit. Okay. Now this is the part I didn't show you. So when I think of cats knocking things over, I just think of them kind of like pushing, something off until it falls off. But this cat is a super cat, so it's not going to just be subtle about it. It's just going to, you know what, we're doing this. And so off camera, I watercolored this little vase. So I did draw this one because I don't have a stamp. And this is supposed to be yellow, but it turned out to be like a goldish color. And then I just add some green, blues, and yellows. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to have him hucking this vase across the room. Once again, I'm going to add a little bit of foam to this because I just want to make sure it's all kind of level, like the cat. And you want to, because you're adding foam, you kind of want to make it look dimensional, that it's all the same. Like you don't want it to go in and out in this case because the vase should be fairly close to the distance of the cat. So if the cat's closer to you, then this vase should be also closer to you because it was thrown by him. It doesn't make a difference if you don't. Or, sorry, it doesn't matter if you don't. It just creates a little bit of difference in the shadow. And that's what kind of is cool about that, doing that. And then we just put that there. Now what I'm also going to add is I drew this little flower, right? So as you can see, because it's being wung, I drew the flowers kind of drooping on both sides and one kind of coming towards you because it's being thrown across the room. But I also drew this little one here and I wanted to add, and I'm not going to add any foam tape to this one, mainly because it's too skinny. And pretty much it's just it's come out of the vase. Now, the one thing I didn't take into consideration is this needs to be a shaped card. So off camera, I did draw a line there, and I'm going to see if this works. I just took a circle die, and if I put that here, where's it going to, because this vase is now, so these are things you have to take in consideration beforehand, but even though I had done this, I've already forgotten. So I had already glued everything down without thinking. But let's just work with this. I want to use longer shears because then you get more cut in one, like more of a longer cut. And I don't want to keep cutting and have the habit of or the chance of it being crooked. So I'm just going to do the best that I can. I could have gone through a die cut and just carefully went so far down. I've never been successful with that. So we'll see how this looks. I mean, if it wrecks the card, that's okay. I can always make another one if I wanted to. But at this point, I probably will post this regardless. So there you go. Now I have a shaped card. And let me just... Oh, there's my eraser. It was hiding under a piece of paper. Now, if I put that there, it will cut that off. If I grab my die, it's going to cut like that. So that's how you visually see it. It's going to cut it. Hold on. Cut it like that. Yeah, I think let's do it. You know what? You never learn if you just don't do it. It doesn't matter how much effort you put into it. I think there's like, it's one of the Zen lessons, I'm pretty sure, where you create a piece of work. You work really hard on it. And once you're done, you destroy it. And it's like raked in sand, I believe. I think that's actually pretty cool. There we go. And I can just kind of trim this off a bit just so that it's all nice and smooth. Or I could just ink that if I really wanted to. I don't think it's too bad. I mean, I have to do a shape card and that's kind of fun. And it's kind of hanging over. Okay. And now to finish it off, I just need my sentiment, and I'm kind of thinking something, but I need to think about it. So let me just come back and then I'll have the card finished and I'll show you what my sentiment is. Okay, and here we go. So this is the card. My sentiment is Super Kitty saving the world from poor taste, one vase at a time. So what I'm thinking is normally how cats always just knock things off of counters and stuff and we don't understand why. Well, that's the reason. It's because the cats are saving us from poor taste, and so they just destroy it. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever, but it makes me laugh, and that's all that matters to me. So we have our shaped card, which I can trim off a little bit. You can see a little bit of weight there, but whatever. Yellow, green, and blues. We have our superhero, and the fancy circles are the little cheeks, and then there's stenciled circles here. There's hand-drawn circles inside the flowers, and then we have drawn circles there. So there we go. And I did add some shading over here and all over the place just to see if I can make it a little bit different. And I had a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun making this card, and I hope that you had a lot of fun seeing how I imagine things and how I create them, how I just put them together. And so thank you so much. And I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll talk to you all later. Bye.